Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham. Ollie, based on league form alone, I don't think he should be in a job. And I say that because if you look at the Premier League table on the 20th of January 2025, Tottenham Hotspur are 15th in the Premier League table, mate. They've won 7 games all season. You know, they're in terrible form. They're not in a relegation battle because the sides below just simply aren't picking up enough points to drag the likes of Tottenham, West Ham, Man United into it. I mean, it's as far as I can see, I think Everton will be okay now with David Moyes as well. It's 3 from 4 at the bottom there. But for Tottenham Hotspur, Ollie, the reason that Ange Postecoglou is still in a job, and we talk about the fact that he's been unlucky with injuries, we can talk about that, but the reason he's still in a job is because he's still in 3 cup competitions, right? And if you look at the fixtures he's got next, in the next 6 games, he's got 4 cup matches. They're away at Hoffenheim in the Europa League, then they're home against Leicester in the Premier League, then they're home against Elfsborg in the Europa League, then they're away at Brentford in the Premier League, then 2 really big ones, because the Europa League, they will, I think, at least finish in the playoff positions, right? Then they travel to Anfield, protecting that 1-goal lead in the Carabao Cup semi-final. Now, if they can go to Anfield and somehow grind it out and stop Liverpool, maybe Arne Slot rests a few, and he could take his side to the Carabao Cup final, that 100% keeps him in a job. And equally, I think if they can go to Villa in the 4th round of the FA Cup and win, even if they lost the Carabao Cup, I think then it'd still be in the Europa League, still be in the FA Cup. I think it'd stay in a job. But on league form alone, I mean, he's gone 6 weeks ago. You know, he's gone. So it's the cups that are keeping him in a job. I'm very intrigued now, Ollie, to hear you say you feel a bit sorry for Ange, or you explain what you're thinking is there.
There was a post-match interview on TV that was, the interview started with the line, "Familiar story then, Ange," which I thought was horrible. As a way to open an interview with somebody, I think that's a really ugly and dismissive way, because you're not asking a simple, your thoughts on the 90 minutes or something like that. You're literally saying, same old story, eh, Ange? You're bloody rubbish, aren't you? And then people got annoyed that Ange Postecoglou got very prickly about that. He's not stupid, despite what people think about his inability to change tactics and bolster down this Tottenham defence in any way from a managerial role. But he isn't stupid, and he understands that he's in a pressure situation right now because this league form is so dire. So to get annoyed at Ange Postecoglou being frustrated with a completely loaded start to an interview, it's heaping unnecessary crap on his shoulders more than anything else, when actually just saying, Ange, another frustrating defeat this weekend, how does this compare to other defeats, or something like that. But to kind of be almost, it's like you're taking the mick out of him. Familiar story, eh, Ange? Like, if you, Dave, were having a terrible time, right? I don't know, say something happens in your world, it's a woman that you're in love with or something like that, and then she walks away from you. And if I just went, so, Dave, thoughts on pretty usual thing for Windsor after these sorts of relationships, eh?
It's just it's a bit mean, isn't it? I guess the difference is that person asking the questions, Ollie, they are being paid to elicit a certain response to get a certain amount of views and a certain amount of clicks, and you'll get that by extracting the highest level of emotion from Ange.
That's not your job as an interviewer. Your job as an interviewer.
I mean, it kind of is.
Well, you're meant to be the mediator between the fans and the manager, driving clicks. The idea of doing an interview to drive clicks, i.e., inciting a riled up reaction. Yeah, but it's just pathetic, because that's not what it should be. It should be.
But that's what it is. Why do you think Roy Keane called Erling Haaland a League 2 player, or he says Trent's like a rubbish defender? They don't actually believe these things. It's because they've got contracts.
He's not doing it to his face. Is he? He's not going up to Trent Alexander-Arnold and going, it's not
how I would start an interview. And I think on paper, obviously I don't know who the broadcaster was, but on paper, I mean, they're supposed to be a mediator, but in reality, there's a producer there saying, "Oh, Ange is in a weak moment. Let's see what we can get out of him. Why don't you lead with this?" Or, I don't know, Ollie. These people have got contracts, and they don't have contracts to be nice. They have contracts to ask very awkward questions. I agree with you. The framing of it's quite.
It's not a question. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's not a question. It's just a statement. Familiar thing.
Isn't that how Aussies work?
if it goes up at the end of the sentence, then you know it.
Go up. Yeah. Ollie, does he survive then? I reeled off those 6 games, 4 cup games in the next 6. I mean, what Let me rephrase that. What keeps Ange Postecoglou in a job from here?
Trophy.
Because it ain't the Premier League table.
Yeah, if he wins the League Cup or gets them to a League Cup final, I think that's probably enough, to be honest.
Do you think if he gets knocked out the Carabao Cup in the second leg against Liverpool but stays in the Europa League and the FA Cup, he can keep his job?
I don't think the FA Cup really saves him at this point. We're only at the fourth round stage, so hanging your hat on, I can grind this out. Same with the Europa League. There is an immediate positive thing that can happen before we get to that kind of end of the season madness of late February, March time, where there's those last ditch moves managerially from some sides that then start looking to plan for a summer. And I think that's the time that Ange Postecoglou needs to be worried about. So he needs an upturn in form in the league, or a dramatic upturn in form in the league, or he needs to go and lift a Carabao Cup, and I think that will save him. It would certainly help him save a lot of face. But if he goes out the FA Cup, if he doesn't make a Carabao Cup final, and the league form kind of continues, I think you do start thinking that Daniel Levy will turn and try and see somebody else through the door before the end of the season, which is a shame, because
it's a massive shame.
Like,
he's great. He's fucking great.
Tottenham are awesome to watch. Like, as entertainers, I mean, you're talking about, the media are there to ask these loaded questions and elicit these reactions and everything. Well, isn't sport there to entertain us now more than anything else?
Are you not entertained, as the big man, as Big Ange once famously said?
Yeah, and I 100% am entertained every time I watch Tottenham, but I'm not a Tottenham fan. So that's probably why it's easy to be entertained by it. If you're a Tottenham fan, it's a nightmare scenario having to go through 90 minutes once or twice a week.
It's also a bit patronising if you're a Tottenham fan and hearing that you're everyone's favourite second team, and there's this sort of layer of comedy around it. Like, wouldn't it be funny if Big Ange actually won something, guys? Like, there's an element of comedy around it. Like, everyone enjoys watching Tottenham because it's just a side with seemingly no rules.
They're like a fun failure at this point in the Premier League, which is what everyone likes.
I wonder where Ange at sort of 60 goes from here. One of the reasons I like him in the Premier League as well is because he's just the oldest manager in there at 60. I think it's great. Is he going to win the Carabao Cup? I think it's a big ask at Anfield. I think he'd need a bit of luck, and I think he'd need a team selection from Liverpool to go his way. And I agree with you, actually, that even if he goes through to the last 16 or 32 of the Europa League and the last 16 of the FA Cup, to keep him just because you might win the trophy in one of those feels like a stretch, because there's a long way to go and some big games, and you would have only beaten Tamworth and then Villa away in the FA Cup. But yeah, that away at Anfield and away at Villa and 2 cup competitions, if those results don't go his way, I think he's in trouble.